They called her the Queen of High Society, Linda Mason, whose name shimmered across glossy magazines and social media feeds. She had it all: wealth, a powerful business empire, and a husband who was the envy of many. But behind the opulence lay a crack in her carefully curated kingdom. When a scandalous rumor reached her ear, her husband's secret mistress brazenly insulting her as useless and fat, Linda found herself on the brink of devastation. Little did anyone expect that this moment of betrayal would ignite the most explosive confrontation of her life. In a single night, everything would change, setting off a chain of events that would captivate an entire city. Linda Mason was born into a world where fortunes hung in crystal chandeliers and success was measured in diamond-encrusted accessories. Her father, Gregory Mason, was a pioneer in luxury real estate, famous for transforming decaying city blocks into gilded communities that boasted private cinemas, rooftop gardens, and membership clubs frequented by celebrities and magnates alike. Her mother, Catherine Mason, had been a celebrated fashion designer in her youth, known for dressing the likes of Grace Kelly and other Hollywood icons. Linda's upbringing was shadowed by these two titans who expected nothing short of excellence from their only child. Linda grew up in a sprawling estate just outside of Manhattan. The mansion had been built by her great-grandfather, whose signature was etched into the cornerstones of every philanthropic project in the city. She was taught from a young age how to walk, talk, and behave in a manner befitting a Mason. Tutors were flown in from Europe to instruct her in languages, etiquette, music, and dance. While many children might have bucked under the pressure, Linda found a strange sense of calm in it all. She thrived on discipline, on the knowledge that if she just worked hard enough, her parents would be proud. She learned early on that the Mason name carried an almost magical effect. Waiters jumped to attention. Store managers offered private showings of their most exclusive merchandise, and top-tier universities saw her application as a near guarantee. Linda was also taught to be gracious and kind. With wealth comes responsibility, Gregory would remind her. You must honor the Mason name every step of the way. She took that mantra to heart. By the time she was 25, Linda had attended galas at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, rub elbows at Bill Gates's philanthropic dinners, and even traveled to a futuristic tech summit in Shanghai with Elon Musk's entourage, though she felt out of place in the technology world. She was more inclined to business strategy, specifically the hospitality sector. Inspired by her mother's impeccable sense of style and her father's real estate empire, she decided to start her own chain of boutique hotels, dubbing it Mason Retreats. Linda poured her heart and soul into creating sanctuaries of luxury in prime destinations around the globe. Her hotels became a sensation. A Mason retreat wasn't just a place to stay. It was an experience. Each property told a story, an artistic concept shaped by local culture. Within 5 years, Linda's net worth soared. She was forging a destiny all her own, beyond her father's real estate holdings and her mother's design legacy. At last, it seemed Linda had achieved what she always wanted: recognition in her own right. It was during the expansion of Mason retreats in Europe that Linda encountered Sam Harrington, a dashing project manager who came highly recommended by top architectural firms. Soft-spoken yet confident, he had the kind of unassuming charm that could make a room full of executives put down their phones. Tall, with salt and pepper hair that gave him an air of sophistication, Sam had an uncanny ability to manage finances, talent, and resources with a level head. Linda was instantly drawn to him, not just for his business acumen, but because he seemed unimpressed by her last name. He talked to her as an equal, teasing her, challenging her, and offering fresh perspectives on her hotel designs. It was refreshing. Still, the Masons had rules. Gregory tried to vet every serious suitor Linda brought home. Catherine made it her mission to see if Sam could carry a conversation about art couture and the finer things in life. Sam won them over with an effortless charm. He knew just enough about art to hold his ground. And more importantly, he focused on Linda's dreams for the future. Every time Linda talked about her upcoming expansions, especially her dream of building a getaway resort in the Swiss Alps, Sam would listen with rapt attention, offering tidbits of advice that Linda found invaluable. It wasn't surprising that within a year, their romance blossomed into a whirlwind engagement. Society pages lit up with the story heiress Linda Mason to wed rising star Sam Harrington. People snapped photos of her ring, an antique sapphire that once belonged to Linda's grandmother. The wedding held at the historic Rose Garden Estate in upstate New York was the talk of the town. The guest list read like a who's who of billionaires, politicians, and Hollywood A-listers. But Linda was too in love to care about appearances. As she walked down the aisle, heart pounding in her chest, she felt a surreal sense of destiny. She had found the man who appreciated her for who she was, not just the Mason fortune. For the first few years of their marriage, Linda and Sam were unstoppable. They traveled together to oversee new hotel locations, each trip like a honeymoon in some glamorous locale. Gossip columns photographed them in Mykonos, sipping champagne at private beaches. They collaborated on philanthropic projects. One of their crowning achievements was building an arts school in underprivileged neighborhoods of Chicago, where Sam had grown up. The future looked bright until subtle changes began to creep in. Little did Linda know that beneath Sam's confident exterior, there lay a restlessness that would upend everything they had built together. 3 years into their marriage, Linda started noticing minor but troubling shifts. Sam would come home later than usual, claiming that projects were taking more time. He was always polite in explaining his tardiness, but Linda sensed a distance forming between them. She tried to brush it off, telling herself that building an empire together involved sacrifices. She was busy too, traveling across continents to finalize details of new Mason retreats. Why should she judge Sam for working late? Yet the tension became tangible when Sam began urging Linda to hire additional oversight for certain projects, particularly the new resort in the Maldives. He argued that the workload was too big to handle alone. Linda resisted, feeling that the Maldives project was her brainchild, an exclusive island experience that combined ecological preservation with cutting-edge luxury. She wanted to be hands-on in every detail. But Sam surprisingly seemed lukewarm about the Maldives expansion. He recommended delegating it to an associate named Eloise Winston, an up-and-coming interior designer known for her flamboyant style. Linda was wary of involving someone with so little background in green architecture. But Sam was insistent. Eloise has a fresh eye, Linda. She can bring that wow factor to the project. This was the first real clash. Linda eventually agreed to meet Eloise, but the encounter left her uncomfortable. Eloise was indeed striking, tall blonde, exuding an air of theatrical confidence. She spoke knowledgeably about textures, lighting, and color palettes that were sure to seduce high-profile guests. Yet Linda found her design ideas at odds with the brand's ethos of sustainable luxury. She also noticed how Eloise seemed to fixate on Sam during the meeting, directing her smiles and jokes his way. Linda rationalized it as Eloise's method of building rapport with the key decision-maker. After all, Sam was the project manager. Perhaps Eloise wanted to impress him. Despite her reservations, Linda hired Eloise on a trial basis. Soon after, Linda's schedule intensified. She had to fly to Hong Kong for an urgent issue involving Mason Retreat's expansion in Asia. A government permit fiasco threatened their timeline. Sam was left behind in the US, supposedly overseeing both the Maldives and a new property in Aspen. In Hong Kong, Linda worked tirelessly. Days blurred into nights. She would FaceTime Sam at odd hours, but his phone often went unanswered. Meanwhile, Eloise sent project updates replete with bold color schemes and exotic design proposals that Linda found both audacious and borderline chaotic. Something felt off. She heard from mutual friends that Sam was seen at an upscale restaurant with Eloise. It was presumably a business dinner, but Linda's heart clenched at the thought. One evening, after weeks of back and forth with Hong Kong authorities, Linda collapsed on her hotel bed, exhausted. She tried calling Sam one more time, only to hear a standard voicemail. She left a message voice tinged with weariness and longing. The next morning, an apologetic text arrived from Sam late meeting. Crashed early. Sorry, love. We'll talk soon. But there was no mention of Eloise. When Linda finally returned stateside, she confronted Sam about their communication issues. He reassured her with warm embraces and sweet words. He claimed that Eloise was just a dynamic professional, someone with a creative flair who needed guidance. He apologized for missing her calls, blaming it on the grueling pace of project deadlines. Linda, wanting to believe in her husband's sincerity, let it go. Still, the encounter planted the seeds of doubt. In the subsequent months, Linda found herself up to her neck in business expansions, while Sam continued to champion Eloise. The Maldives project went full steam ahead, with lavish designs, some of which Linda secretly disliked. She pushed back, but Sam would gently remind her they needed to appeal to a global elite that wanted flamboyance as well as eco-friendly measures. Linda compromised, trusting that Sam understood their demographic. Yet her gut nagged. She noticed questionable expenditures on the project's budget reports. Private jets to the Maldives more often than necessary, extravagant decor items from European suppliers. Sam insisted that the Maldives clientele demanded the best. Linda, feeling battered by her schedule, resisted another fight. She let Sam handle the project as he saw fit. But the personal distance between them widened. Gossip started brewing in high society circles, hushed whispers about Sam's closeness to Eloise. Linda tried to dismiss these rumors. The Mason name made her a target for speculation. Paparazzi often fabricated stories for clicks. And Sam was a charming man. He could be friendly without it meaning anything. Yet the undercurrent of dread remained creeping into Linda's everyday life. She tried to drown it out by burying herself in work, determined to keep Mason Retreat's reputation spotless. But fate had other plans. Soon Linda would be forced to confront the ugly truth she had long feared. A year into the Maldives project, Linda felt compelled to do a surprise visit. She had just wrapped up a corporate training session in Dubai, and figured the Maldives was only a short flight away. She didn't tell Sam, wanting to see the real situation on the ground. Upon landing on the small private airstrip near the resort site, Linda marveled at the turquoise waters and pristine beaches. This was the paradise she had envisioned, lush with palm trees, shimmering waves and coral reefs. At first glance, everything seemed perfect. Construction was well underway, with villas taking shape around the lagoon. Workers bustled about under the watchful eye of a local foreman. Linda decided to walk through the half-finished villas unannounced. The interior designs were indeed luxurious, but many details clashed with Linda's original vision of blending into the natural environment. Instead, she found large crystal chandeliers, mirrored walls, and flamboyant sculptures. It was not subtle. She felt her heart sink. This was Eloise's mark, dramatic and ostentatious. Part of Linda worried that Mason Retreat loyalists would find it gaudy. As Linda checked the manager's office, she discovered Sam was not on site. The staff explained that he and Miss Winston had left for a weekend at a nearby island resort to draw inspiration. Linda's mind reeled. She tried to maintain composure, reminding herself that it might be purely professional. Still, she demanded an impromptu staff meeting to gauge the project's status. The workers seemed pleased with the progress, but certain conversations made Linda uneasy. A few employees mentioned how Sam and Eloise spent evenings dining together, returning late after what they described as brainstorm sessions. Linda left the island that evening deeply unsettled. She didn't want to confront Sam right away, because she had no proof of wrongdoing. Instead, she returned to New York and quietly began to dig. She tapped into her connections, a finance manager who helped her track project expenditures, a private investigator recommended by a friend in the city's top law firm. She asked them to look into anomalies in the Maldives budget and keep an eye on Sam's travel records. What emerged from the shadows shocked her. Thousands of dollars spent at luxury boutiques in Europe, far exceeding what was needed for interior decor. Plane tickets for 2 on first-class flights that didn't align with official project travel schedules. Receipts for lavish gifts that were certainly not for Linda. Each new piece of evidence felt like a dagger to her heart. She had been willfully blind for too long. Finally, the day came when the investigator handed Linda photographs of Sam and Eloise strolling arm in arm on a secluded beach near the project site, looking every bit like a couple on a romantic getaway. Linda stared at the pictures in silent fury. She had been betrayed not just as a wife, but as a partner who had entrusted Sam with her beloved brand. The very place she had poured her soul into a paradise that was meant to bring joy to her guests had become the backdrop for an illicit affair. Trembling, Linda slipped the photos into an envelope marked personal and confidential and locked it in her private safe. For a moment, she considered confronting Sam immediately, throwing the evidence in his face, demanding an explanation. But a colder, more rational side took over. She would wait. She would confront him when the moment was right, and she would not do it alone. Gregory and Catherine Mason noticed Linda's anxious demeanor, but she kept them at bay with half-truths about business stress. No matter how pained she felt, Linda did not want to burden her aging parents. If the scandal broke, it would be a personal shame that might also damage the Mason name. Linda resolved to handle it discreetly. In the weeks that followed, Linda pretended ignorance whenever Sam mentioned Maldives updates. She even forced herself to commend Eloise's design choices. Her feigned support seemed to embolden Sam, who began spinning grand tales of how the completed resort would outshine any other. With each word, Linda's heart hardened. She had never believed herself capable of deception, but now she saw it as a necessary shield. A small part of Linda still held on to the faintest hope that there was some misunderstanding. Could Sam be so brazen in his betrayal? She remembered their courtship, how he had once gazed at her like she was the only woman in the world. Their philanthropic efforts in Chicago, he had seemed so earnest. What had changed? But each time she recalled the photos, her doubt vanished. Sam was gone. This man who stood in front of her was a stranger. The final blow came one evening when Linda hosted a charity gala at the Mason Grand Hotel in Manhattan. Celebrities, socialites, and business tycoons filled the lavish ballroom, raising funds for underprivileged youth in arts and technology. Linda was the perfect hostess, charming, gracious, dressed in a dazzling emerald gown that complemented her figure. Sam was supposed to stand by her side, but he arrived nearly an hour late. To Linda's shock, he arrived with Eloise, and not discreetly. They strode in together, capturing the attention of photographers who snapped pictures of the duo, looking unnervingly comfortable in each other's presence. Linda's hands shook as she set down her champagne flute. Anger and humiliation collided inside her. She tried to keep up appearances for the guests, feigning a gracious smile. The flashes from cameras were relentless, each one a painful reminder that this scandal was about to go public. At first, Linda tried to maintain her composure, greeting Sam and Eloise formally. She quietly demanded an explanation. Sam mumbled something about Eloise being an important collaborator, but he wouldn't meet Linda's eyes. Eloise, on the other hand, seemed to relish the moment. She sauntered over, offering Linda a condescending smile. "Linda, darling, you look... well," she purred, letting her gaze flick over Linda's figure. The tension was palpable. Some of the guests whispered among themselves, though most maintained polite facades. Linda wanted to drag Sam into a private room and scream her fury. But the cameras were everywhere, and she still had a fundraiser to host. With every ounce of willpower, Linda continued the gala's program, introducing performers, stepping on stage to announce raffle winners. Sam and Eloise drifted through the crowd like a poisonous cloud, drawing perplexed looks from those who knew Linda best. After the official program ended, Linda excused herself and went to her personal suite within the hotel. A few minutes later, Sam slipped into the room. He tried to speak, but Linda cut him off. "How dare you bring her here?" Her voice trembled, not just with anger, but heartbreak. Sam tried to defend himself, claiming Eloise had sponsors for the event. Linda exploded, recounting the evidence of his affair, the receipts, the private investigators' photos. Sam stood there, face pale. He stammered denials, half apologies, ramblings about how Linda had been too busy and emotionally distant. When Linda demanded to know how long it had been going on, Sam looked away, confirming her worst fears. She slapped him. Once. Hard. Sam recoiled but didn't retaliate. In that moment, Linda realized how deeply broken their marriage was. Before Sam could respond, there was a knock at the suite door. Eloise waltzed in without waiting for an invitation. She locked eyes with Linda, her expression smug. Now, she said, "there's no need for violence." That was when Eloise uttered the words that would haunt Linda. Casting a disdainful look at Linda's figure, Eloise sneered. "You're so useless. And fat. Sam deserves better." Her voice dripped with cruelty, as if she wanted Linda to crumble right there. Linda's mind reeled. She felt as if time had slowed. Eloise had crossed a line. The humiliation Linda had been trying so hard to hide now blazed into public awareness. The door to her suite was ajar, with curious onlookers gathering in the hallway. People heard every word. The slur echoed in Linda's ears, reverberating through the last shreds of her composure. In one swift motion, Linda pressed the suite's intercom, summoning hotel security. Her voice was calm, almost frighteningly so. She demanded they escort Sam and Eloise out of the building immediately. 2 towering security personnel arrived within seconds, having recognized Linda's voice and the gravity in her tone. By now, half the guests were watching. Cameras flashed anew as Linda pointed a trembling finger towards Sam and Eloise. "They are no longer welcome here," she declared. The security guards who had served the Mason family for years took swift action. Eloise erupted in protest, shrieking that Linda was overreacting, that Sam would straighten this out. Sam tried to say something, but Linda refused to meet his eyes. With a mix of shame and anger, he followed Eloise, who was practically dragged from the suite. Their shouts and scuffles reverberated in the corridor. The last thing Linda saw was the back of Eloise's shimmering dress disappearing into the elevator. The hush that settled over the onlookers was deafening. Linda closed the door. She took a moment to steady herself, leaning against a marble pillar. But the calm was short-lived. A wave of tumultuous emotions, betrayal, heartbreak, fury crashed into her. For a full minute she considered collapsing onto the plush carpet and sobbing. Instead, she stood up straight. Cameras or not, she was a Mason, and she would not let this define her. Little did she know this was only the beginning of the storm. The following morning, headlines exploded across tabloids and social media. Heiress Linda Mason throws out, husband and mistress at gala. Paparazzi had captured that final image of Eloise being marched out by security, her face twisted in fury. Sam, looking disheveled, trailed behind. The media spun wild theories, some speculating that Linda had known about the affair for months, others painting her as a wronged wife, making a spectacular comeback. Memes, tweets, and gossip columns circulated non-stop, turning the scandal into front-page entertainment. For the first time in her life, Linda felt truly exposed. She had always been in the public eye, but under controlled circumstances, charity events, business achievements, interviews carefully orchestrated to highlight her philanthropic side. Now the narrative was out of her hands. She found herself bombarded with calls from lawyers, media outlets, and even old acquaintances looking for juicy tidbits. Her PR team scrambled to craft an official statement urging Linda to stay silent until they could manage the crisis. Linda holed up in the penthouse suite of the Mason Grand Hotel for 2 days, ignoring calls from Sam. She only left to attend urgent board meetings for Mason retreats. She felt a potent mix of pain and determination. Part of her still reeled from Sam's betrayal. The other part of her was steeled by a newfound resolve not to be a victim. After all, she was not just a trophy wife. She was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar hospitality empire. Her father, Gregory, offered support in the only way he knew, by sending a team of high-profile lawyers to her side. Catherine, her mother, urged Linda to file for divorce immediately. But Linda was not yet ready to talk about the next legal steps. She needed time to process her heartbreak. She had loved Sam deeply, and the wound was still raw. Her mother pushed, reminding Linda of the family name and how crucial it was to act swiftly and preserve her dignity. Linda, however, demanded space and time to think. Meanwhile, Sam bombarded Linda's phone with messages ranging from apologies to pleas. He asked for a meeting, claiming he could explain everything. Linda refused. She had endured enough lies. Eloise, on the other hand, seemed to revel in the sudden media attention. A photo of her seated in a limousine, flashing a victory smile, surfaced online. Speculation arose that she might try to sell her story to tabloids for a hefty sum. In the midst of this chaos, Linda found unlikely solace in her work. Yes, her personal life was in shambles, but Mason retreats gave her an anchor. She channeled her energy into finalizing deals, meeting investors, and planning new expansions. Ironically, her brand image saw a surge in public sympathy. Many women admired her composure, praising her for standing up against the Mistress. Bookings at existing Mason retreat locations spiked, fueled by curiosity and solidarity. Of course, behind the scenes, Linda fought nightmares. She would wake up sweating, recalling Eloise's sneer, useless and fat. The words gnawed at her insecurities, memories from childhood, when her mother critiqued her weight, or when socialites whispered about her slight physique fluctuations. Despite outwardly projecting confidence, Linda wrestled with shame and self-doubt in the privacy of her room. She considered seeing a therapist, but dreaded the media finding out. Instead, she confided in a close childhood friend, Rebecca Blair, who flew in from London the moment she heard the news. Rebecca listened for hours as Linda poured out her heart. She reminded Linda of her accomplishments, her resilience, and how petty Eloise's insults truly were. "You're not useless," Rebecca said firmly. "And you're certainly not fat. You're Linda freaking Mason. Everyone else is just background noise." That conversation gave Linda a glimmer of strength. Then on the third day of Linda's self-imposed seclusion, the doorbell to her penthouse rang unexpectedly. Linda checked the monitor. It was Sam, flanked by a security guard. Linda stared at the screen, uncertain whether to let him in. The guard politely explained Sam was requesting a conversation. With reluctance, Linda decided to hear him out. She needed closure, or at least some clarity. Sam entered, eyes rimmed with fatigue. He looked disheveled in a way that Linda had never seen before. The easy confidence he once radiated was gone. He apologized profusely. He claimed that the affair with Eloise started out as a mistake, an emotional entanglement that spiraled out of control. He blamed the gulf that formed between him and Linda, citing how she was always busy, how he felt overshadowed by her. Linda listened silently, her arms crossed, her heart pounding. Yet Sam's justifications only further revealed his insecurity. He had never truly been at ease with Linda's success, the constant public attention, the overshadowing legacy of the Mason family. Eloise, with her adoration and willingness to stroke his ego, became an escape. It was an explanation, but it was not an excuse. Tears gathered in Linda's eyes, not for Sam, but for what they had once shared. She realized their marriage had died long before Eloise entered the picture. This was just the final straw. She let Sam finish, then in a measured voice informed him that she would be filing for divorce. They would settle the business entanglements as quietly as possible. Her lawyers would handle the details. Sam tried to protest, swearing he would cut ties with Eloise, but Linda shook her head. The trust was gone. She also demanded he resign from his position in Mason Retreats. Sam looked wounded, but Linda was adamant. She could not allow him to remain a senior executive in her company after such betrayal, both personal and professional. Shamefaced Sam accepted the terms. He asked if there was any chance for a second chance, but Linda was resolute. It was too late. She handed him a manila folder containing official documents explaining his severance package. Sam gazed at it, tears in his eyes, as if the reality of his downfall was finally hitting him. Linda had never felt more drained. When he finally walked out, Linda closed the door and sank to the floor, hugging her knees. She whispered goodbye to the life she had once envisioned. The divorce proceedings began swiftly. Linda's legal team, led by the esteemed attorney Oliver Chambers, moved to protect Linda's assets. Sam did not contest the prenuptial agreement, which had been wisely drafted before the marriage. He received a settlement enough to maintain a comfortable lifestyle, but nowhere near what Linda's net worth had become. The court mandated Sam to relinquish any claim to Mason Retreats, though Linda agreed to let him keep certain investments they had made together during their happier times. She wanted to end this chapter without dragging it out in a messy public trial. Meanwhile, Eloise Winston tried to leverage her newfound notoriety. She gave an exclusive interview to a tabloid painting herself as the real visionary behind the Maldives project. She hinted at a secret romance with Sam that was a year in the making, stirring the pot for headlines. She even boasted about calling Linda useless, though she conveniently omitted the fat insult. Public opinion swiftly turned against her. Social media lambasted Eloise for her arrogance. Former clients dropped her from design projects. Linda did not need to lift a finger. Despite the personal turmoil, Linda's business flourished. The scandal had ironically given Mason Retreats a new level of visibility. Journalists covered the story of how Linda took out the trash, as one commentator put it, and emerged stronger. Bookings soared. Investors clamored to collaborate with Linda, seeing her as a savvy CEO who could handle adversity with poise. That didn't mean Linda's days were without struggle. She still flinched whenever tabloids rehashed the story of her humiliating confrontation with Eloise. She found herself replaying Eloise's insult, wondering if there was any truth to it. But each time Linda would look in the mirror and remind herself that she was more than her appearance. Over time, she began to see Eloise's words as the desperate lashings of a woman who had nothing else to offer. Linda also dedicated herself to philanthropic endeavors that empowered women. She expanded partnerships with organizations that supported female entrepreneurs and abuse survivors. She funneled a portion of her hotel profits into setting up safe houses and vocational training centers. Publicly, she framed it as a natural extension of Mason Retreat's mission to cultivate well-being. Privately, it was a way to find catharsis, helping others heal from betrayal and trauma. Slowly, Linda regained her sense of self. She took up yoga and meditation, discovering that the daily practice offered a grounding she had never known before. She also ventured back into the dating scene, though cautiously. She had dinners with potential suitors, some introduced by her mother, others who were business acquaintances. Though none sparked a deep connection yet, she felt a sense of liberation, knowing she could explore life on her own terms. In a bold move, Linda decided to transform the Maldives project into an ecological masterpiece that adhered to her original vision. She cancelled or resold the gaudy decor items Eloise had insisted upon, replacing them with sustainable, locally sourced materials. She collaborated with environmental scientists to ensure the resort preserved the coral reefs. The resulting property opened to rave reviews, hailed as a luxury eco-sanctuary. Linda smiled through tears when the first guests posted glowing social media pictures praising the resort's beauty. Meanwhile, Sam faded from the scene. Rumors circulated that he had tried to maintain a relationship with Eloise, but it imploded amid mutual accusations of betrayal. He relocated to a smaller city, perhaps hoping for a fresh start away from the glare of tabloids. Linda occasionally heard updates, but she had no desire to reconnect. She was too busy carving out her own destiny. As the weeks turned into months, Linda noticed she no longer felt a stab of pain when she thought of Sam. She felt something else, gratitude, oddly enough, for the adversity that had shown her how strong she really was. Just when Linda believed the scandal was behind her, a twist emerged that threatened to drag her back into the chaos. One afternoon, Oliver Chambers, her lawyer, called with alarming news. Eloise Winston had filed a defamation suit against Linda and Mason Retreats, claiming that Linda's public ejection had ruined Eloise's reputation and business prospects. Oliver assured Linda that this was a desperate stunt. Eloise was leveraging the public fiasco to claim emotional distress and financial loss. "She has no real case," Oliver explained. "She insulted you and you lawfully removed her from your private property. But we need to be prepared." At first, Linda was tempted to dismiss the suit as frivolous, but Eloise's legal team had made a spectacle of it in the press. They painted Eloise as a talented designer who had been ostracized by vindictive, powerful elites. Linda found the accusations laughable, given Eloise's actions. Nevertheless, she had to fight back. In a strategic move, Oliver countersued for breach of contract, presenting evidence that Eloise had falsified invoices to funnel money for her personal use, leading to inflated budgets at the Maldives site. Linda's private investigator had uncovered bank statements linking Eloise to questionable design firms that overcharged. The countersuit painted Eloise as a fraud, someone who exploited the project's budget to enrich herself while carrying on an affair with Sam. The court battle that ensued was highly publicized, with cameras stationed outside the courthouse. Linda attended the hearings in tailored suits, exuding calm authority. Eloise arrived in flamboyant outfits, her hair styled dramatically, playing up the role of a scorned genius. The testimonies were tense. Eloise sobbed on the stand, accusing Linda of orchestrating a smear campaign. Yet the evidence against Eloise was overwhelming. Photos, invoices, and witness testimonies laid bare the financial discrepancies. In cross-examination, Eloise floundered when asked to justify her spending. She tried to deflect blame onto Sam, who was not present to defend himself. The judge, unimpressed by Eloise's theatrics, eventually dismissed her defamation suit. Then came the countersuit judgment. The court found Eloise liable for fraud and awarded Linda a substantial sum in damages. Overnight, Eloise became a pariah in the design world. Her accounts were frozen, and she faced potential criminal charges. Linda felt a sense of vindication, though she took no joy in Eloise's downfall. It was a necessary step to protect her company's integrity. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for statements. Linda delivered a poised address thanking the justice system for its fair ruling. She expressed sadness that such a creative individual had chosen a path of deception. Then she turned to the cameras and reminded the public of her philanthropic commitments. That day, Linda Mason's reputation soared to new heights as a powerful woman who had faced adversity head-on and emerged victorious. With the lawsuit resolved, Linda's life finally found a stable footing. The media buzz began to die down, allowing her to focus on the future. Mason Retreats opened new properties in Morocco, Iceland, and Bali, all emphasizing sustainable luxury. Shareholders were ecstatic with the company's performance. Linda considered taking the company public, a move that could triple her already considerable fortune. Yet money was not Linda's sole focus. She learned the hard way that trust and genuine connections were far more valuable. She rekindled friendships with classmates from her university days, people who knew her before she became the glamorous CEO. Together they arranged get-togethers, devoid of paparazzi, simple gatherings with movies, pizza, and laughter. Linda discovered joy in the ordinary. She also found new confidence in her own skin. Eloise's cruel words had once stung deeply, but Linda realized she had the power to define her own self-worth. She hired a personal trainer not to lose weight, but to feel strong and energetic. She embraced healthier eating habits, not as a punishment, but as a celebration of the life she was rebuilding. Over time, she gained a glow that came not from external validation, but from self-love and acceptance. One night, Linda attended a charity gala hosted by the Gates Foundation. This time, she arrived solo, wearing a stunning black gown that captured her newfound grace. Camera flashes lit up, but Linda walked confidently. She spent the evening networking with philanthropists, discussing potential collaborations to expand her youth arts program in Chicago. She chatted briefly with Bill Gates himself, who commended her efforts in sustainable hospitality. In a surprising turn, she ran into Dr. Michael Huang, a researcher she had funded for marine conservation projects in the Maldives. They had exchanged emails on a professional level for nearly a year, but never met in person. He praised her commitment to preserving coral reefs. Linda felt an immediate connection, both emotional and intellectual. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, ranging from oceanic ecosystems to the best street food in Singapore. Over the subsequent months, Linda and Michael grew closer. He wasn't dazzled by her wealth. If anything, he teased her about it, joking that he only dated her for unlimited hotel stays. She laughed, enjoying a playful banter she had long missed. Michael, with his quiet determination and genuine passion for the environment, reminded Linda of the best parts of herself. He also helped her see that a person could care about success without sacrificing personal ethics or love. In time, Linda invited Michael to meet her parents. Gregory was skeptical at first. This unassuming scientist didn't fit the mold of a high-powered executive. But Michael's dedication to his field and his sincere admiration for Linda won him over. Catherine, too, found Michael refreshing compared to the preening social climbers she often encountered. For Linda, it felt surreal. She had never imagined herself in another relationship so soon, but life had a way of surprising her. She hadn't planned to fall in love again. It simply happened as natural as a sunrise. Months melted into a year. Linda achieved milestones she once only dreamed of. Mason retreats soared higher than ever. Charities in Chicago thrived thanks to her continued support. And her personal life flourished in a way she hadn't thought possible after her painful divorce. In quiet moments, Linda still reflected on the betrayal she had faced. But each memory of Sam and Eloise felt more distant, like a chapter from a book she had finished reading. Then came a day in late spring when Linda decided to visit her favorite Mason retreat location, a secluded estate in the Swiss Alps, the project that had once been her ultimate dream. She invited Michael along, hoping to show him the breathtaking mountain views and the exquisite property that embodied her brand's ethos. The air was crisp, the sky a vivid cobalt. Snow-capped peaks stretched endlessly around them. After a leisurely afternoon exploring the resort's luxurious lounges and panoramic terraces, they found themselves in a private outdoor hot tub overlooking the valleys below. Steam rose in the chilly air. Soft music played. The scent of pine lingered. Linda felt a serene sense of contentment. She looked at Michael, who smiled back with warmth and admiration. That was the moment he produced a small velvet box. Linda's heart lurched. She watched, stunned, as Michael opened it, to reveal a simple yet elegant ring, a sapphire set in understated platinum, reminiscent of the one Sam had given her, but so different in its meaning. With a gentle voice, Michael asked her to marry him. Tears welled in Linda's eyes. She thought of the pain she had endured, the heartbreak, the public humiliation. Yet, here she was, at the apex of her personal triumph, being offered a love that felt genuine and untainted by ambition or deceit. She whispered, "Yes," her voice quivering with joy. He slid the ring onto her finger, and for the first time in a long while, Linda felt the future open up before her, radiant and full of hope. As the sun set over the snowy peaks, Linda closed her eyes, feeling an overwhelming gratitude for life's unpredictable tapestry. She had faced betrayal, navigated a media storm, and emerged stronger than ever. Perhaps that was the greatest gift adversity had given her, the chance to discover who she truly was. Beneath the Mason name, beneath the gilded trappings of wealth. She was Linda, a woman capable of rising from her darkest hour into a place of light and love. The months that followed Michael's proposal brought a serenity Linda never expected to find again. There were no tabloids speculating about lavish venues or designer gowns, no invasive drones circling the skies for secret footage. This time, Linda was adamant their wedding would be hers, not the media's. A private affair, meaningful and authentic, nestled away from society's flashing cameras and sharp-tongued gossip. They chose a lakeside retreat in Vermont, hidden deep in a valley where the mountains kissed the clouds. The guest list was short, curated with care, only those who had walked through fire with her. Her parents, of course, and Rebecca Blair, whose unwavering friendship had kept Linda anchored. A handful of trusted colleagues, a few childhood friends, and Michael's parents, humble academics from California, made up the rest. No reporters, no influencers, just warmth. On the morning of the ceremony, the mist floated lazily across the lake, giving the entire setting a dreamlike stillness. Linda wore a gown designed by a promising student from her scholarship program in Chicago, a soft ivory silhouette that honored the future rather than the past. The bodice was embroidered with subtle patterns, inspired by coral reefs, a quiet tribute to Michael's passion and their upcoming joint venture in marine conservation. Her veil was pinned with a brooch that had once belonged to her grandmother, a silent symbol of lineage, survival, and continuity. Gregory walked her down a narrow aisle lined with wildflowers. His gait was slower now, his frame less commanding than it once was, but the pride in his eyes blazed brighter than ever. As they reached Michael, Gregory pressed a hand over his heart before gently placing Linda's hand into her fiancé's. Michael's suit was simple but well-fitted, and he smiled at her with that quiet steadiness she had come to love. Not performative, not ambitious, just present utterly and completely. His vows weren't rehearsed speeches. He spoke plainly but powerfully, promising to protect her peace, support her vision, and grow with her rather than alongside her. Linda's vows were more emotional. She spoke of the storm she had weathered of betrayal, humiliation, and the painful rebuilding of her self-worth. She didn't mention names. This was not a ceremony of vengeance, but those present knew the story. Instead, she spoke of resilience, of rediscovering hope, and of the love that found her, not when she was searching, but when she was simply surviving. "I once thought love meant standing in someone's shadow," she said, softly. "But today, I marry the man who chose to walk beside me, in light, in darkness, and everything in between." When she slipped the simple platinum band onto Michael's finger, she felt something lift, a final remnant of the sorrow that had shadowed her heart. The reception was a sun-drenched celebration on the retreat's open lawn. Strings of fairy lights hung from birch trees. Musicians played soft was, while guests sipped wine and shared stories. Rebecca, ever the life of the party, surprised Linda with a playlist of songs from their college days. The two of them danced barefoot on the grass, their laughter echoing across the lake. Catherine dazzled in a silver gown, moving from table to table like royalty reborn. At one point she pulled Linda aside and whispered, "I've never seen you glow like this. You've made it, darling. Not just in business. In life." Later, as the stars blinked awake in the velvet sky, Gregory raised a toast. He spoke not of legacy or wealth, but of courage. "To my daughter," he said, voice thick with emotion, "who reminded us all that falling isn't the end. It's a chance to rise wiser, stronger, and more beautifully than ever before. The next morning, Linda and Michael departed for the Amalfi Coast, a destination chosen not for its luxury, but for its quiet charm. They stayed in a stone cottage nestled on a cliffside, waking to the sound of waves crashing below. They strolled through lemon groves, dined at seaside trattorias, and spent long afternoons in sunlit silence, simply holding hands. In those idyllic Italian days, they drafted blueprints, not just for their ocean research facility, but for their life together. They talked about children, about splitting time between cities and islands, about how they would continue to empower others. Linda shared her desire to open a wellness foundation for women recovering from emotional trauma. Michael offered his network to expand marine awareness programs in public schools. They were dreamers, yes, but also doers, and they had the scars to prove they could survive the storms. Back home, Linda's executive team kept Mason Retreats thriving. With her blessing, Oliver Chambers finalized the company's move toward an IPO. Shareholders were eager, knowing the value of Linda's brand wasn't just built on luxury, it was built on perseverance. When they returned from their honeymoon, Linda was greeted by a welcome party in the boardroom. Flowers, a hand-carved plaque bearing the name Huang Masen Research Initiative, and a room full of people who believed in her. Later that night, as Linda reviewed plans for the Maldives facility, now incorporating choral nurseries and floating classrooms, she paused to reflect. Her journey had been marred by betrayal and public ridicule, but it had also been a crucible forging her into someone unshakably whole. She didn't just reclaim her power. She rebuilt it, and then she passed it on. Now, with Michael by her side, she was ready for anything. When we confront life's most staggering betrayals, we often discover our greatest strength. Linda Mason's journey from the public humiliation of being called useless and fat to triumphantly rebuilding both her personal life and her global hospitality empire stands as a testament to that truth. She chose dignity over self-doubt, purpose over victimhood, and in doing so became an inspiration to us all. If Linda's story moved you or helped you find your own spark of resilience, don't keep it to yourself. Let others know they're not alone. Share this video with friends who could use an empowering message, and give it a thumbs up if you believe in bouncing back stronger from adversity. And of course, subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories of hope, courage, and transformation. Thank you for watching, and remember, you hold the pen to your own story.